Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. I'm Gabriel Maramontes, joined today by Jacob Bartley, and we're talking fallers and risers. I guess I should have actually said that the opposite way. I gave like a lot of inflection to the fallers and like not a lot to the risers, but we're talking about fallers and risers on today's podcast, specifically at the QB position. Before we do that, I want to just thank everybody for coming on out, giving us a like, giving us a sub, and commenting, letting us know your thoughts. We always like interaction down in the comments, so feel free to do that. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, also on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Facebook at First Round Fantasy. If you want the merch, tpublic.com. Just wait. There's always a sale. Again, I'm joined by Jacob Bartley today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well, man. We're coming hot off our Dynasty rookie draft, so like fantasy feels real again. It's just such an exciting time. I think we both had a really good draft. So, I'm pumped. It feels real now, tangible.
Real, oh so real. Yeah, you had a pretty good draft, man. You had the 101 pick. Mm-hmm. Come on, dude. It was Trevor Lawrence, right?
It was Najee Harris, man. One rule that I like to follow is, and everybody knows this in the fantasy community, is know who you're drafting with. Know your league mates. And we've had these discussions before, but running back is very valuable in our league. So I felt like going with the running back. And I got a quarterback too, so I'm not mad.
Yeah, you picked up Trey Lance just a few spots later. Your draft turned out really nice, man. Najee Harris is going to be a fine piece for that Steelers offense. Trey Lance, the future of the San Francisco 49ers. Good picks. I ended up with Travis Etienne, Chase, and Zach Wilson.
Dude, so that was the biggest surprise, is that Jamar Chase fell at number 7.
Oh, he fell far. Yeah, I think I took him at 7, right?
And you just traded Justin Jefferson, so it worked out. You ended up getting Jamar Chase, which that was great for you.
Yeah, I expect big things from Jamar Chase, but at the same time, rookie hype can be real, and it can also be real letdown. So we'll have to wait and see how they play out. Before we talk about our fallers and risers today at the QB position, I want to get a little bit into some hype noise. Usually we do our news and notes before we start our big chunky stuff that we're going to be talking about for the day. But today specifically, I like to just follow off-season news more so than I do in-season, right? Because once you get into the in-season, it's like, all right, is this guy injured or is he not injured? Or is this guy going to be traded before or after the deadline? But up until that point, like there's hardly really anything that's really meaty, stuff that makes you go, "Ooh, yeah, let's dig into this." It's in the offseason, and it's all hype, or is it? So we're going to look at a few stories from the past week or so and just kind of give our take on what we feel. Are they real hype? Like, can we see these come to fruition, or are these just going to lay a big fat turd on our hopes and wishes and not a good stuff for fantasy? And let's start off with the first one. That's coming from us for they're not the Los Angeles Chargers. No, wait, they are the Los Angeles Chargers.
They're not the San Diego Chargers anymore.
Yeah, they're not the San Diego Chargers anymore. Out of Los Angeles, Mike Williams expected to see good numbers. So that's literally all it says. Just expected to see good numbers in 2021, according to their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. Now, Jacob, how much do you buy in, first of all, because we're talking about hype in general, how much do you buy into off-season hype?
Off-season hype, it depends. I think each case it's a case-by-case scenario, honestly. It really depends. Like, some of it is just complete BS and coach speak and just the team and the players saying the right things. Some of it is legit. So you got to evaluate each situation differently, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. For me personally, I find myself buying into the hype when it's guys that I like or I own share of. So definitely true. A very selfish reason to believe in it. But come on, you're telling me as a, what's my guy right now? Oh, you're telling me as a Gibson owner over there, running back for the Washington football team, all the hype news right now is, hey, we're going to get him more passing routes. We're going to get him more work this year. Of course I'm going to be stoked about that, right? I mean, he's my guy. He's the guy on my team. He's the cornerstone of my dynasty team. So I want to be hearing those things. If it's the guy I do have and I'm hearing bad stuff about him, a few years ago I had Todd Gurley. knee issues, all that stuff. And you're like, I don't believe it. Like, he's going to be fine. Unfortunately, those are two things that are going to come true because, Todd Gurley, yes, degenerative knees are a real thing, and that's kind of derailed his career over the last few years. And, Gibson's the real deal. So, of course, he's going to have a phenomenal
And that's
season.
a good point. It can go both ways. There can be off-season hype, and I don't know what you want to say the opposite of hype is.
True.
but
I don't
off-season,
Dud?
negativity. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
But and there are a few situations, even some stories we're going to talk about here, where there is off-season negativity or negative buzz, you could say. So it just really depends. And like you said, there's because all the time we hear, oh, they're going to do this player's looks amazing in camp, but then nothing happens with him during the regular season, or we're going to use Travis Etienne as a wide receiver. And it's like, then it comes to the season and it's kind of like maybe he has a season like Gibson last year when we thought he was going to be a wide receiver,
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's
really
just good.
Depends. Yeah,
that's a really good comparison there.
Yeah.
Specifically talking about Mike Williams, he's been in the league a few years now, new offensive coordinator over there, and sat out almost the entirety of his rookie season due to a disc. He had back surgery, complications with that. And since then, he's had spurts where he's been really dominant. But for the most part, they have just been just that, spurts. So is this something that you believe in? Like, can we finally have an established number 2 alongside Keenan Allen? I mean, with Justin Herbert throwing the ball, you want to believe that that's totally something that can happen, right?
I personally believe so. Yes. I am a Mike Williams supporter and believer.
You are. I forgot about that.
I have been for years. Look, I watch a lot of Chargers games. I don't know why. I used to, in the Phillip Rivers heyday, I used to drop Phillip Rivers a lot. I used to have a lot of Melvin Gordon back in the day. So I used to watch a lot of Chargers games. And Mike Williams, I love him as a talent and his just physical attributes. I think he has, and obviously I think he was a top 6 overall pick in the NFL draft.
Most certainly was, yeah.
So obviously he has the potential and the talent to be great, but he's never, hit it. He's had some really good seasons. In 2018, he had 10 touchdowns on 66 targets, 43 receptions. And then in 2019, he has 1,000 yards, but only 2 touchdowns. And it's like, see, he needs to combine both of those and have a great year. To me, it's really about health because he misses a lot of games and he leaves a lot of games. He's like the second coming of Julio Jones, where like, yeah, if you look at Julio Jones, he didn't miss that many games, but that's not – see, everyone brings that up. Julio Jones doesn't really miss that many games, but he leaves a lot of games and comes out of the game. So if you look at his stats, it says he played, but he only played like 2 quarters. So anyways, Mike Williams just needs to stay healthy. If he does, I think he can be that dynamic number 2 next to Keenan Allen. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, I like all the things you have to say. I do think that Austin Eckler is, anytime you have a pass catching running back in an offense that dynamic. No, it's not really to hurt. I mean, it hurts Mike Williams, but at the same time, I still think Mike Williams in a Justin Herbert led offense can do great things. Justin Herbert has slung it down the field, and we saw them have great success. Unfortunately, Williams was injured a little bit last year. He missed a few games, but with health concerns and with Austin Eckler, I don't know. I want to believe it, man. Again, it's hype, right? Like, you want to buy the hype. You want players to be good because guess what? If that player's good, it makes that player good. And the more players that are good for fantasy, the better it is for fantasy because there's more options out there, higher scoring games.
Obviously, it helps Herbert,
It hurts. I mean, yeah, it helps Herbert. I was going to say it hurts Herbert, but no, it helps Herbert. So I think we can tentatively agree that we are buying the hype, right? We are buying the hype on Mike Williams. Seeing a good
as long as he doesn't leave a bunch of games. Because if you look, he played 16, 15, and 15. But like I said, I know I was paying attention. He leaves a lot of those games. So just take it. He plays hard. So just take it easy, man, and stay healthy, please.
Yeah, he plays hard, and I remember one of his injuries last season. Like right before, like as he suffered this injury, he missed like the next 2 games. He was going up for a contested pass, like I don't know, like it was like a 60-yarder or a 40-yarder or something like that, and it was a contested catch, and he fell right on his back, dude. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy. And then he misses the next 2 games. But you're right, he plays hard, he plays tough, and sometimes like that, when he's healthy, you're going to throw him out there, especially if he starts the season off on a good note. Let's move on to our next story. And that's a very much so a more coveted name in Saquon Barkley. He could be on a pitch count to start the season next year. That's according to the Giants head coach. Does Saquon in a limited work role concern you at all? Because he is always up there with like the consensus top 3 picks in most redrafts and especially in Dynasty. So does that concern you at all when you hear the words he's going to be on a pitch count?
It doesn't concern me because I'm going to have no shares of Saquon Barkley. In the range where he's drafted, I'm going safer routes. I'm so worried. He's played 3 seasons. The last 2 seasons he's had, well, I know the second year he had a serious injury, and then he comes back later in the year. He healed way faster than everybody thought. And then last year he has a season-ending injury. So 2 out of 3 years, major injuries. I love Saquon as a player. I had him his rookie year in one of our leagues. He balled out. But I just, like, if he stayed healthy, if he was healthy all these 3 years, we could be talking about him as a number 1 overall pick. Or it could be a situation where people are taking him and McCaffrey, decide which one you like better. He's obviously falling around maybe the RB5 range, middle of the first round, top of the first round. I'm going to go safer. I'm going to go maybe Jonathan Taylor or even Zeke if I'm picking around there. But for those people who are going to have Saquon, I would be a little worried, to be honest. And although the pitch count could help him be healthy all year, but you expect him to be a McCaffrey-like workhorse. And if he's not going to be that, then is he that as valuable as he's being drafted? So a little worried, but not too much, to be honest.
Yeah, I like the way that you phrased that. And one important thing to note is that the Giants as a whole have been hyped a lot this offseason with the additions of Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Saquon's health, Daniel Jones sort of improving. I don't want to say that this is like my fool's gold of 2020. We're going to have a podcast on that later in the year. But I don't know if I'm believing in the Giants as a whole, as much as I am believing in a team, that's also in New York, the New York Jets. I think that very much this is a pivotal season for both of those teams. First year for Robert Saleh, third year for Daniel Jones in New York. A lot of different scenarios. And in my head, when I run the simulations, because I'm like playing Madden all the time, it just doesn't seem like it plays out well for anybody that's there. And that includes Saquon Barkley. But again, his rookie season was fantastic. How often are we kind of, rubbed either the right or the wrong way by these, seasons that are just spectacular, and then we live off of that value and that hype for years to come because he was that guy that
kind of did that with Leonard Fournette, to be honest.
Exactly.
We remember his rookie year, and he was drafted in the first round after that, and we all valued him very high.
Yeah, exactly. So Saquon Barkley, nice guy. I think he's definitely a top 10 pick. Am I sitting there at number 3 and picking Saquon Barkley behind a guys like Dalvin Cook and CMC? I don't know. That's a question that I think Jacob answered. Do you take a guy like Zeke, with Dak coming back? That's for the viewers at home to decide for themselves. But I don't know. I don't know just yet. I guess
I'll take Saquon if I have like the 7th or 8th pick and he falls to me.
Of course.
And he's the last workhorse available, I'll take him. But if I have the 3rd or 4th pick, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, of course. Good point. Let's touch on our last story here, and that is Anthony Lynn, former coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, now the new offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He says that they're going to take a hot hand approach at the running back position this season. Obviously, with the signing of Williams over from Green Bay that now kind of adds some murkiness to the Detroit backfield that was once DeAndre Swift toward the end of last season. They're also being rumored to entertain the idea of possibly signing Todd Gurley. So when you think about those three guys in a backfield, you think very much of a situation like last year where it was Kerryon Johnson, Adrian Peterson, and DeAndre Swift. So my question to you is this good news for a guy like Williams? And is it bad news for a guy like Swift? Because obviously Williams is the guy that's having that you associate him with a better value in drafts right now. He's a guy that you can get later in drafts, maybe the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round. Whereas for Swift, you're paying up. You want that guy that's going to give you, good productivity when you're reaching for him in the second or late second, mid-second round. So I guess my question to you, Jacob, is again, when I see that news, I'm excited for a guy like Williams, knowing that he can get a few carries in the second quarter of a game and take off. But are you as hyped about it as I am?
No, this is what I would call an off-season buzzkill. If we're trying to find an opposite word of hype, this is
buzzkill. That's a good one.
Look, we have to learn as fantasy players to separate real football from fantasy, right? We got I could see as I don't have a lot of Swift stocks, but if I have Swift in a keeper league or dynasty league, I hate this news. And it makes me just hate the coaches in Detroit, right? But it's not their fault. They don't care about our fantasy teams, right? But to me, this just ruins any hype for DeAndre Swift, to be honest, because we're looking at it and for the first time in a long time, running back is pretty stacked right now because we had an influx of 6 running backs last year that are going into starting positions again this year. And I guess you could throw James Robinson too. He was part of that, but obviously ETN going there hurt him a little bit. And then we have at least 2 or 3 new rookies coming in as well. So running back's pretty stacked. And you look at Swift and it's he's a good, second or third a great third running back to have, a really good second running back to have. And it's wait a minute. He was I think he was a second round pick last year. He showed that he's very talented, and you're going to just diminish all of his momentum that he has and probably hurt his confidence. I don't understand these teams, the situation with Jalen Hurts, how they were saying for a while that they're going to have a competition. I'm no, that's not how you do it. And this is just me. You're supposed to put faith in your guys and say, this is our guy. Right. And I don't know, obviously for the quarterback position, for the running back position, it's a little bit different, but I would also say look, they have a lot of draft capital in Swift. To me, he's clearly the most talented of the bunch right now. They also drafted Jamar Jefferson as well, Jamar Jefferson. So why are they bringing in Todd Gurley? I don't get it. But this is it kind of upsets me for the Swift because it's just saying okay, now Jamal Williams can just come in and take the starting job if he's hot, has the hot hand, or maybe Jamar Jefferson has the hot hand. Todd Gurley is going to have the hot hand up when they sign him, right? So I honestly just don't even believe them. I just think it's no, Swift is the guy. Jamal Williams is going to be a nice piece. I could see something like a Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt split between those two, but then where do they work in the rookie? Do they bring in somebody else? I just think for fantasy, this is bad news for Swift. But here's how you handle this. And I'm a pro handcuff guy. You have to if you have DeAndre Swift, find a way to get Jamal Williams on your roster. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, perfect handcuff, perfect scenario. Yeah, I can't agree with you more. You talked about Swift and you talked about Jacksonville at the same time. And it's almost a similar situation in the sense that, you draft a guy like ETN in Jacksonville and you're hearing this noise that, hey, he's going to be a wide receiver. We're putting him outside the lines.
He's only going to be a third down back.
He's only going to be a third down back. And you heard those same kinds of things about Swift last year. But obviously Swift was a they were both. Wait, was Swift a first round pick last year?
I think he was a second round
He was
pick.
a second round pick. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So when you hear those things, I look at the players as a whole. I think ETN is better built as a more consistent, dominant, 3-down back than Swift is. I think he was really remarkable with his pass catching chops in college, and he proved that his first year in the NFL. But yeah, the more you talk about it, I'm not a fan of DeAndre Swift where he's going. But I could see more scenarios where he succeeds and he proves a lot of doubters wrong, including myself. But for right now, this is something that I'm leaning towards in the Jamal Williams direction, like I stated earlier. But hey, this is where we differ. And that's what it is. That's what Hype Noise is. You pick a side, all right? And that's what we're doing here. We're picking a side. And that's going to do it for our Hype News. So we're getting into the thick of things now, talking about our risers and fallers of the 2021 season, specifically the quarterback position. What we did here was we looked at the top 15 quarterbacks for fantasy last year. And we looked at that list and we thought to ourselves, which one of these guys or which two of these guys have the best potential to fall in the rankings? Maybe fall out of the top 15. Hey, maybe they don't have to fall out of the top 15. Maybe they fall back just a few spots, but they're falling regardless. Okay? So I guess I'll start us off. And my guy is the guy who finished number 7 for fantasy last year. And that is Ryan Tannehill, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. I looked at dynasty rankings the other day, and this guy's like the 10th QB going off the board. And I'm like, really? Like, what is going on here? And I dug into it, and it didn't help my cause anymore. And I was just listening to a podcast the other day, some guys over at CBS, and I love their podcast, by the way. If you guys ever listen to us, hey, shout out to you. But they're also excited about this. Now, this argument that I'm about to lay the foundation for is not completely thrown out the door, but it is severely hindered if Julio Jones ends up on the Tennessee Titans in the next few days. But if he is not there, then tune in, because I'm about to lay the framework for why Ryan Tannehill.
All we can do is evaluate on the information we have right now.
Which is why we're putting this episode out as fast as we can, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going to lay the case down for Ryan Tannehill. And first and foremost, you need to know the name of a guy like Arthur Smith, offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans over the last few seasons, gave tremendous success to Ryan Tannehill, revitalized his career over there in Tennessee from what it was back in Florida, in Miami. And he's gone now. He's now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Their new offensive coordinator is a guy by the name of Todd Downing. Todd Downing spent the last 3 seasons in Oakland demolishing Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think he was a good fit. Derek Carr is a great QB, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Las Vegas Raiders fan. I am saying that because I genuinely believe he is a good quarterback. In 2016, he put up MVP caliber numbers. The Raiders were great that season. The following season, Todd Downing comes in, and it's been a season after season after season of inconsistent struggles for Derek Carr. And albeit, he still managed to put up really good numbers, but not as near as what he was able to do in 2016. So he's got a new offensive coordinator to work with, okay? Not to mention, Ryan Tannehill threw the ball 481 times. You know what that puts him in pass attempts for the league, Jacob? Take a guess.
Middle of the pack? I don't know.
Middle of the pack? You're wrong. It was 30th in the league.
I was going to say,
attempts,
that's
right?
crazy.
30th in the league. As far as the top 15 fantasy QBs are concerned, that's the second lowest pass attempts behind only Lamar Jackson. Derek Carr, who we were just talking about.
He must have been extremely efficient then.
You think about that, right? But hold on, I'll get to it. So you think about that, but Derek Carr was right behind him. He threw 517 pass attempts. That's 36 more than Ryan Tannehill did. And you mentioned it. Yeah, he must have been extremely accurate. His QB completion percentage was only 65.5%. That's the lowest completion rate of anybody on the top 15 fantasy quarterbacks. Okay? Now you just factor in the players. Corey Davis is gone, 92 targets. Jonnu Smith is gone, 65 targets. That's 157 vacant targets that who Van Jefferson is going to fill, or I mean, not Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds is going to fill coming over from Los Angeles. Don't get me wrong. I think this guy has tremendous potential. I think he could very easily slide into that Corey Davis role. But at the end of the day, the Tennessee Titans are a run-heavy team. And I don't want to see the end of Derrick Henry. And I'm not saying it's coming yet this season, which is why I preceded that by saying this is a run-heavy team and it runs through Derrick Henry. This is a reason why, Ryan Tannehill only threw the ball 481 times because this team is going to run the ball. And I just don't think that bodes well for a guy. Back to what I was saying earlier, 65% completion percentage, lowest of anybody in the top 15 last year, but yet he was 8th in touchdowns. He set a career high in touchdowns, 36. He's not going to do that again. Kind of like you were talking about earlier when we were talking about hype noise. Mike Williams caught 10 touchdowns in his or sophomore season, and then 2 the next, and we were like, because touchdowns are you can't predict touchdowns. You can predict, targets. You can predict probable receptions and yardage, right? Touchdowns are the hardest thing to predict. They're so
wow. He only had 7 interceptions as well.
Exactly, right? So, he was hyper efficient while being highly inaccurate. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's an outlier of a season. And that's why I think
might have elevated him into that top 15 is his rushing touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see how many he had? 7.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
7 rushing touchdowns, which again, I was literally about to mention that. But
I don't know. I don't think he's going to repeat that. So
yeah, which begs to differ to the point I was just saying. Like touchdowns are entirely an anomaly. The only person that I've ever seen that's been consistent in touchdowns over the last 6 or 7 years has been a guy like Mike Evans, because he's always getting double-digit touchdowns and somehow always managing 1,000-yard seasons. I don't know if that's going to happen for Ryan Tannehill. Now, do I think that Ryan Tannehill falls out of the top 15? Not necessarily. But if you're playing in a 10-man league or a 12-man league, I think he falls out of contention of being that guy who's going to start for you every week in a top 10 scenario or top 12 scenario. I think he falls right around that range of 13 to 15, possibly as bad as 15, as far as 15. And when he falls into that range, he becomes a QB streaming quarterback. And that's where I think his role is. That's where I think it will be. And hopefully he can bounce back next season. Maybe I'm talking about him as a riser next season. But for this season in 2021, Ryan Tannehill is my faller. Jacob, what is your – oh, sorry, go ahead. Do you have any closing thoughts to my argument?
No, that's a good one. Like when I was looking at the list, Tannehill was the first one I was going to go for. And I'm glad we actually prepared – I'm actually glad we prepared, because if we would have just both had the same ones, then we wouldn't have much to talk about, because we would just talk about this one guy, do all our research on one guy, and then move on. But yeah, I think it's a good choice, man. It's no shade towards him. He's a really good player.
Not at all.
And you can they could go win the Super Bowl and he could still be a bottom 15 quarterback for fantasy. It doesn't matter, I
think that's happened before. Yeah.
Those things don't necessarily have to correlate. So, and to him, that's all that matters, right? Is having a good season and a good real NFL season and winning. So that's no shade to him. But I do think, because you got to think, in order for some of the guys in the lower half to move up, some guys are going to have to go down. And he's a good guy to choose for that. So
that is a good point. For every faller, there is most certainly a riser. And Jacob, what is your 2021 QB that is on the fall, the downward spiral this upcoming season?
So you mentioned a guy named Derek Carr. And I will say, look, obviously I'm a 49ers fan, but I respect Derek Carr. I think he is a good quarterback. Like you said, he is. He is a good quarterback. He's underrated. He's undervalued in this league. I mean, you can see before the Colts traded for Carson Wentz, they reached out to the Raiders, and the Raiders said, nope, he's not available. So obviously the league, I think the league knows how talented he is, but maybe fans don't. NFL fans don't appreciate him.
Especially fantasy fans.
But like I said, just because he's a good quarterback in real life doesn't translate necessarily to great fantasy seasons, especially when you consider lack of rushing upside when it comes to Derek Carr and things like that. So Derek Carr is my faller, but I just wanted to preface that by saying no disrespect to him. I think he's a really good player. I respect him. But for fantasy, I think he's going to fall out of this top 15. And there's a few reasons for that. One of them being, and which you're familiar with, Gabe, is they blew up the offensive line. They had a really good offensive line. It was helping him succeed, even though the Raiders, they had a winning record. So
Yeah,
it's not like they had a bad season.
8-8, yeah.
But he's playing well, and a lot of it has to do with the offensive line. And they got rid of at least 3 of them, right?
Yeah, they got rid of Gabe Jackson, Trent Brown. Yeah, they got rid of a handful of guys.
Yeah,
it's very sad.
I'm assuming they didn't upgrade in replacing them.
They put a lot of rookies in there, that's for sure.
And then another thing you got to think about, they didn't upgrade the offense at all. So if you want to, okay, Nelson Aguilar's gone. He had a nice season last year with Oakland. One of my sleepers this year is John Brown. John Brown is a sleeper. I think he could lead this team in receiving. But essentially, what's the difference between Nelson Aguilar and John Brown? I think John Brown is probably better, maybe, if he can stay healthy, but you're just swapping those guys out, right? So the offense is going to look very similar. A lot of Darren Waller. I mean, we have Drake there. Does Drake help Derek Carr, like, for fantasy, or does he hurt him? I mean, maybe it could go either way. So my point being is, like, they didn't bring in a Julio Jones. They didn't draft a new dynamic young wide receiver. It's a lot of the same, other than the offensive line getting worse. Another thing, like you mentioned, their offensive coordinator is gone. He went to Tennessee, right?
Tennessee.
So they brought back a guy we were just talking about this before the show named Greg Olsen. And no, not that Greg Olsen, not the tight end for the Carolina Panthers for many years. Greg Olsen with Olson. And this guy, so from what I can tell, so he was with Derek Carr in 2014, his rookie season, and Derek Carr had an okay season. He had a 76 passer rating, not great. But this guy has bounced around the league. He was with the Detroit Lions from 2004 to 2005, the St. Louis Rams 2006 2007, Buccaneers 2008 to 11, and then the Raiders in 13-14, the Jaguars in 15-16. So if you go back and look at those, not a lot of great quarterback seasons from those teams those years. So all that being considered, I just don't see a situation where Derek Carr is in a place to hold top 15 value or move up. And I just think the fact, even if he has the same season, I think other quarterbacks are going to go elevate themselves, especially like a Dak Prescott, right? Was out. So he's obviously not in the top 15.
Yeah, well,
he's going to be there again next year.
You can't do me like that.
And then,
of course.
Who knows? Joe Burrow could be in the top 15 because he got injured as well. Maybe one of these rookies ends up in the top 15. So that's going to push everybody else down. All that being considered, I have Derek Carr as a faller. Again, no disrespect.
No disrespect taken. But I was going to have to do this once.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a little bit of poo nanny, and I'm sick of it.
Sorry for the listeners.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that was really loud. No, I mean, I understand, dude. I don't know why you go out and you dynamite your whole entire offensive line that was so great for the last 2 years, and then do that to them. I don't think Kenyon Drake hurts Derek Carr in a sense where he becomes irrelevant. No, that's not. I mean, if anything, they help each other because Derek Carr is going to be chased by a lot of defensive linemen who he's then going to have to dump the ball off to Kenyon Drake. And I think that's a great scenario for both of them. You have John Brown as a sleeper. I have Henry Ruggs as a sleeper.
No, I think I have high hopes for Henry Ruggs too. I do. I think he's going to have a better season for sure.
Yeah. So, the big thing with the Las Vegas Raiders is their defense. They address it like they do every year, and it's always bad. And it has been for a number of years. So I think the Raiders are going to be down quite a bit. And that just opens more opportunities for Derek Carr to, dump offs, throw the ball deep, big plays. So as much upside as there is for a team like Las Vegas for fantasy purposes, there's equally as much downside for them as well in terms of the NFL. Specifically for fantasy, Derek Carr, I could see a situation where he does fall out of the top 15. To note, he was number 13 last year in fantasy finishes. So he was right on the cusp of that QB1 range. If you had to give him a specific spot, if he were to fall, obviously if he falls out of the top 15, do you at least consider him in super flex? So that keeps him inside the top 22 range, 24 range? Or do you
I love, and here's the problem with this. I have Derek Carr in 2 dynasty leagues. I have him in a Superflex dynasty league, and I have him in a 1 quarterback dynasty league. So I want him to have a good season. But I definitely think he's going to be in the top 24. I think he could, because if I'm looking at this, I don't think he falls. And look, who knows? Maybe Daniel Jones is a riser in some people's minds, but he definitely is going to do better than Drew Lock and Daniel Jones. So I could see him right on the cuffs of that 21, 22 spot.
Yeah, that's not a bad spot. Also, we have to consider guys like Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees who retired. It opens the door for an entirely new scope of people to come in and take spots as well. Well, that's going to do it for our fallers. Now, let's talk about our risers. Is that a little bit better? No, I got to be more excited about it. Our risers, right? Guys that we believe in.
And by the way, for the audio audience, that was Gabe blowing up a balloon and blowing it into his mic.
Oh, yes.
We didn't explain what that was.
Oh, my God.
Gabe didn't pull his pants down and release into the mic.
Dude, thank you for clarifying that, because for a second,
thought of that.
I had a mini freak out in my head just now when you said that. I'm like, is there going to be someone out there that literally thinks I just shit myself to fart on camera?
We didn't explain what it was. So.
Yeah, but hold on. I think a fart. Oh yeah, that could sound like a fart. That could sound like a fart.
Look, I listen to our podcast on audio every time after we're done. And so I'm going to see how it plays when it's just audio. We'll see.
Yeah, we might need to cut that out. Let's talk about our risers, okay? These are the QBs that finished in the bottom half of fantasy production last year, meaning they were either 16 to 30 in finish. And we expect big things from them. Now, Jacob talked about Dak Prescott earlier. Obviously, this is a guy that went healthy. Last year he finished at QB 33. He only played the first 4 games of the season. When healthy, that guy is unquestionably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, maybe top 7 if you're, getting stingy with it. But, there are other guys on this list that have been around, or some that are coming into sophomore seasons that we expect very big things from, and to certainly make the jump into very much fantasy relevance. And, I started first last time, Jacob. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and start first this time, because I'm a gentleman. So go ahead. Who is your 2021 riser in QBs this season?
So there are definitely some really good candidates for this. I mean, like you said, obviously a Dak Prescott, obviously a Joe Burrow, but I don't think that was solely due to injury why they weren't there, right? So I don't want to choose a guy like that. Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to rise, but he wasn't even in the bottom 15. So he's going to be a riser, but not for this conversation. I think you have a really good one as well. But I'm going to go with Carson Wentz.
Jacob, I was blowing up the balloon to let it go again, but I'm actually I like the pick. So I'll just tie this one up. Go ahead. Carson Wentz. I like it. Tell us why.
Very glad. So look, Carson Wentz, we've seen greatness from. We've seen a really good seasons out of him. We've seen a great season out of him, and then but until he got injured a few years ago. So and I remember when Carson Wentz was on the rise his rookie year, second year, and just there was so much hype around Carson Wentz. He was the new hot thing in the NFL, and I was like, calm down. People need to relax and stop giving this guy so much praise. But then it went the complete opposite way last year. Now he's he just sucks and people are leaving him to dead. And I don't think that's fair. If he has it in him, he has it in him. And who was he with when he had his best season ever? Frank Reich. And now Frank Reich is his head coach there. Obviously, a big reason why they brought him in. Phillip Rivers had a decent season last year, and they had a really good team with a winning record. I believe they gave the Bills a run for their money in that playoff game. Like, it was a really close game. So, and I think it's fair to say that Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Phillip Rivers.
At that point in their careers. Yeah, most definitely.
As far as that last year, right? Like, just right now, you know?
Yeah.
So
more potential.
And look, I'm not saying Phillip Rivers in his prime. I love Phillip Rivers in his prime.
We all.
But like, I just think that if Phillip Rivers was able to perform at a pretty good level with that offensive line and with this team, I think Carson Wentz can do even better. I know, I don't remember his name, but one of their offensive linemen retired, which actually for the Colts, and it hurts. That hurts them a little bit. But I think they'll be able to get it together. Like, I think they had the 7th best offensive line last year, according to Pro Football Focus. And that was actually what they say a down year for them. So they could bounce back. Like, they have the potential to be a top 3 one again. And they have Quentin Nelson, which is one of the best, offensive linemen in the league. So I just think that all this is setting up success. And honestly, new environment, just a fresh start. Like, no Philadelphia fans or media just bringing you down and attacking you, and that gets into you mentally, right? And you just want to feel wanted and welcomed. And
it's a nice place, right?
They played around, like, they benched him and all this stuff. And I just think they drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round, meaning that they weren't all in on Carson Wentz. So now he knows the Colts want him. He's back with Reich. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is, if I have to choose one wide receiver who's going to just blow last year's performance out of the water, to me, that's Michael Pittman Jr. So if he does that, then obviously Carson Wentz is going to be a beneficiary of that. So I just have really good vibes, really good expectations for the Colts and for Carson Wentz. And I can't wait to see what happens with this team. So Carson Wentz is my fault. Or my riser, and I'm not gonna go crazy. Like, I'm hoping, I'm guessing, if I had to guess, I'm gonna say around that 12-13 spot.
That's fair. I love it. I love everything you said about it. I made a joke haphazardly about the Indy fans being like nice and pleasant compared to fans like in Philadelphia, but it's true. There was a lot of turmoil there in his last 2 seasons when they completely forgot about the fact that this man led their team to a Super Bowl before getting injured and then having the Nick Foles miracle run that he did the year they won, only to be tossed aside like no more than 2 years later. So fans are vicious, man, and that can take a toll on a player. So I like what you said, getting a fresh start, a new perspective, and having a better chance to succeed, honestly, being reunited there with his old head coach. Obviously, the Indianapolis Colts are also a team in contention of getting Julio Jones. So pre-recorded, we don't know where Julio is yet. Hold on. As I say that, I'm just going to take my phone off silent to look for any breaking news. Nothing yet. Yeah, so we're going to continue on.
We are pre-recording this around 1 to 2 p.m. today, but this episode will premiere at 5. So hopefully the news doesn't drop in between then.
Yeah, we might have to push up that start time. But anyways, no, I like what you said. I think Carson Wentz is a fine candidate. I love him in that, 13 to 15 range that you kind of poked at him at. And I think that makes him very relevant for Superflex and, of course, your QB streaming needs. Let's talk about another player that has found a new home, a new scene. And you know what, Jacob? He's also come from a very harsh fan base. So I think our players are pretty similar in that respect, at least. And that is new QB for the Carolina Panthers, Sam Darnold.
That's right.
You could literally be standing on a fence right now, pinpoint balance, looking on both sides, and it is very divided now out there in the fantasy community regarding Sam Darnold. And I'm here to tell you, jump on this side of the hype train, baby, because I think Sam Darnold is prime for a breakout season, and here's why. It took me a long time to build the hype for that. I got silent for a second because I was like ready to say something, and then I just kind of forgot about it. But it's back in my head. We first have to start with a man by the name of Adam Gase. Now, I get it. He gets a lot of flack for being a bad head coach, and he is. He's never had a team with a winning record. I think maybe one season in his like 6 NFL head coaching seasons, he's had a winning record. He's a bad coach. He's never produced fantasy relevant, really anything for offensive purposes. More specifically, he has never had a QB finish inside the top 25 at the quarterback position. So right there tells you that Sam Darnold's first 3 years, of course they were going to be irrelevant because we saw what Adam Gase did to Ryan Tannehill in Miami. Then Ryan Tannehill goes off. He gets out of the Adam Gase torture. He finishes as the QB7 and QB21 over the last 2 seasons. Remarkable stuff. Of course, he's my faller this year, so that doesn't make sense why I'm saying it. But you know what? To each their own. It plays its weight in every conversation. So with that being said, not only does he get a new start in, sunny Florida, but he gets a new head start with a new head coach. And I like that scenario a little bit more, or I should say a lot more than I do with one than Adam Gase. We can talk about weapons next, right? You come into a situation and your running back mate is CMC. You have to be ecstatic about that. He's the best running back in football. He's the most explosive weapon in all of football. And now he gets to line up side by side with you every single play.
And he's basically a receiver.
Now, if you want to talk about the receivers, we can, because you have 2 top 20 wide receivers last year. Well, I think you had 3 top 24 wide receivers last year in DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and then obviously Curtis Samuel. He's now gone. He plays for the Washington football team. But I think they did a really nice job of not drafting a player that plays like Curtis Samuel at all, but a really good touted receiver in Terrence Marshall Jr. I think he's great for that team as well.
Never heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding. I'm super hyped on him. Just drafted in my Dynasty League. Got to plug it in.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, those weapons are arguably better than someone like a Jameis Crowder, who, yes, has had fantasy success, and he's been a reliable, NFL target for a number of years now. And Denzel Mims showed promise last year. But these guys, it's better all around. And when you got a headache like come on, I can't even forget his name. Oh, when you have a headache like Le'Veon Bell and praise his heart, old man Frank Gore running the ball, taking the rock, it's not going to look pretty, okay? And Ty Johnson was good at the end of last year. Obviously, we'll save that discussion for a later day because New York has reconstructed their backfield. But we're talking about Sam Darnold. And I just think a new start with these weapons, with a new head coach, I think it leads to great fantasy success for a guy like Sam Darnold, who has never been fantasy relevant in his 3 years as an NFL football player. Now, am I telling you that he is going to crack the top 15 last year? No. He finished as the QB 30 last year. I think he makes the jump into that 15 to 20 range, which makes him perfectly reliable in super flex leagues. And he becomes like a fringe streamer quarterback for fantasy purposes if you're playing week to week and in one quarterback leagues. Okay? So with that being said, I'm not saying he's going to jump into top 10 success. He's going to blow the doors open. But I think over the next 2 years, if he can prove himself, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it is quite possibly a bold prediction that we could see top 10 success from a guy like Sam Darnold. Not next year, but be on the lookout because this year is a huge measuring experience to see what the future holds for Sam Darnold. And I think it's going to be pretty good. At least I want to be excited for the guy. Okay. So that is my QB riser for the 2021 fantasy football season. I feel like I talk a lot when I do that stuff. Jacob, how do you feel? I know that's a lot of information to take in.
No, I mean it makes sense. You know, you got to make your case, and I mean, you know that I've been in on Sam Darnold ever since he was traded to the Carolina Panthers. I
True.
think it's gonna be. I don't know what to compare it to, but we can't judge him on that situation in New York. It was all bad. It was just all bad all the way around. And look, and it also, you want to add to the argument. I think the best receiver to have their best season with Sam Darnold was Robbie Anderson.
Oh,
On the
exactly.
New York Jets. So he already knows this guy has a connection. And I don't know if you I think Sam Darnold is just super happy. And so he feels loved. He feels wanted. Kind of like I was talking about with Carson Wentz. Like, it's going to be positive vibes and just so much positivity in Carolina. Like, they're all in on him. They traded away Teddy Bridgewater. They didn't draft another quarterback. So they are in on Sam Darnold, and rightfully so. He was a top pick for a reason. And I'm just rooting for the guy. He seems like a good guy, and I hope he does well. And I think he's set up for a lot of success right now. Like, you know, the receivers are really damn good. And then you got the promising young rookie as well. And just he has a CMC. Like, what, you know, this is, I mean, I personally think at this point in their careers that, like, Sam Darnold is better than Teddy Bridgewater. He's just more mobile and he's more athletic right now than Teddy Bridgewater is. But Teddy Bridgewater is a safe quarterback, and he's played that way kind of ever since he had that major injury. So I just think so. The point being is that, and then who was the quarterback last year for not last year, the year before for the Panthers? It was what was it, Cam Newton, right? Or it was a bunch of different guys. It was yeah. There was like a rotation of different. So my point being is now they have stability at quarterback, and this is probably the best quarterback that they've had there in a while
since Cam Newton.
Yeah, since Cam Newton. And I know Christian McCaffrey played with Cam Newton, but Cam Newton was definitely not in his prime. You know, those last couple years with CMC. So, yeah, dude, I agree. Like, if you didn't choose Sam Darnold, I would have. So, great choice.
Thank you. And that's what happens when you make the notes for the show. Jacob, I had no idea how much of an advantage you had when going into planning our episodes. That's going to do it, guys. Those are our risers and fallers at the quarterback position for the 2021 season that lies ahead. Just a few months away now. We couldn't be more excited. As always, if you want to follow us, show us some love, like and subscribe. We appreciate it so much. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at First Round Fantasy. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Jacob, good luck to your Lakers today. I hope they pull it out and force a Game 7.
Yeah, I think they will, but I think they're going to lose in Game 7. So
I was literally just kidding, Jacob. I think your Lakers can.
Oh, my goodness.
Do some bad stuff. We're out of here. I'm not giving you a chance to talk. We'll see you next week when we talk about our running back risers and fallers. Have a good week. We'll catch you next time. Peace.